I didn't even know as a kid that all these messages were being presented to me. And they were in different sections of my life, but they were all kind of working together. But I was also a part of my issues that were created later on in life because I knew nothing about creating relationships, but I knew everything about being a strong, independent woman that didn't need no help. Sweet, I'm so tired. Every dog must have his day. So I was born in the 90s to two military parents on Veterans Day, and I like to consider myself as a gift to them. And they don't really acknowledge it, but I know the truth. And I was a preemie. So the interesting part is that I asked my mom about like kind of like my personality growing up, and she had mentioned that the reason why she felt that I had such an edge and like a fighter in me is because I was a preemie. I've had a lot of health issues along the way as well. So it's kind of conditioned me in a way to have that bit of resilience. And I thought that was a great perspective. I started off with a mindset of like, I have to push through. And some might assume that because I had military parents that would have had something to do with it. And a little bit, yeah, definitely a little bit, because they were working all the time. They were serving the country. So that means that I was put in daycare. That means that I had to spend a lot of time by myself. That means I had to figure out some things by myself. So yes, in that sense, but they never really took military home with them. So I did have that separation. I would say that I was more of a church kid than anything because they kept us in church, okay? They kept us in church. So it was first grade where they put me in a Christian school. So not only was I going to church and staying in church all the time, but I also was going to church at school. So this was largely a part of my life, and I did not enjoy that. I did not understand certain elements of the Christian experience. I felt like things were very superficial. I felt very distant from people within the church. I think my parents did a really good job in raising me and, showing me that love, but I didn't necessarily feel that love from people around me. Well, not everybody around me. So I think it created a rebellion in me, and I'll get to that later. But these are just kind of like seeds that were planted along the way. But I can also, in this point of my life right now, see that God was still working on building that relationship with me, whether I knew it or not. And he was always there. I just didn't know that he was speaking at that particular moment. And part of that is because I started to deviate into a place where all I wanted to do is be outside the church. I didn't want anything to do with it. And that's just me being honest. I was a kid. I didn't really know any better. My point is to be real with you, where I started to deviate. And part of that had to do with the social conditioning that was happening that I didn't even realize until like this point in my life. Sweet, I'm so tired. Every dog must have his day. At least in the boomer generation, it seems like they were very fixated on making sure that their daughters were going to be independent and on their own. And part of that is because there were so many men that had let them down, whether it was their father, whether it was a man that they were dating and they walked away after being pregnant or something like that. So a lot of that had to do with the mindset of that particular generation. I admire that, but I was also a part of my issues that were created later on in life because I knew nothing about creating relationships, but I knew everything about being a strong, independent woman that didn't need no help. That's the truth. And everywhere I went, like even at church, I saw strong women, but I also saw this largely in media. Because like I said, my parents were so busy. They had time to make sure that everything that I was listening to was censored. They had time to make sure that I didn't listen to worldly music and watch certain things. But the messaging, the subtle messaging was still there, even on Disney Channel. I remember having a conversation with my husband where I was trying to introduce him to the Cheetah Girls, and I was singing this song called like I Don't Want to Be Like Cinderella. I think that's the name of the song. But you guys listen to the lyrics because he had pointed out that they were kind of training us to be mini feminists. So the lyrics are, I don't want to be like Cinderella, sitting in a dark, cold, and dusty cellar, waiting for somebody to come and set me free. I don't want to be like someone waiting for a handsome prince to come and save me. On, I will survive. I know somebody's on my side. Don't want to be no, 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 no one else. I'd rather rescue myself. Now, my third grader me was going off to that song. Okay. I loved that song. And little did I know that it was conditioning me to be a strong, independent woman that didn't need no help. That it was changing my mindset. And there were a lot of songs related to being a strong, independent woman. Okay. Destiny's Child. All these things were put out by the time that I was a child. And I'm consuming this. So I didn't even know it, but society was conditioning me from my family, from the people that I knew in church, and then from the people that I would see in the media. I didn't even know as a kid that all these messages were being presented to me. And they were in different sections of my life, but they were all kind of working together to create this strong, independent woman. And then I faced disappointment. So there were a lot of adults letting me down. I felt like my peers were letting me down. And I believe that all those subtle messages were kind of just ramping up to create this boss woman. Because I remember deciding after experiencing so many disappointments in life and people letting me down, I remember making a conscious decision that I'm going to do it myself. Like, if I can't depend on anybody, it's going to be me. If nobody's going to rescue me, I'm going to rescue me. Doesn't that sound familiar? Yes, it does. So by high school, I had decided that I'm going to take control of my life. I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to depend on anybody. I'm going to have to just take life into my own hands. So I remember by junior year, I had told my parents, I said, I want to go to college early. I'm tired of high school. And I found a program where I was off campus. I was sitting on a college campus, finishing up my high school classes, but also taking college classes. Because I knew where I want to go, and I knew that I wanted to build a career. I was going to build my career. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be the CEO or executive of some sort. So I had a lot of ambition in me. So the music was helping me to be that way, and I had people in society helping me to be that way. And I don't know if I was listening to like a lot of worldly music at that point. No, probably. I was sneaking and doing it. Yeah, I was sneaking and listening to worldly music. So that probably had some things to do with it. But like the enemy was implanting seeds in me that were going to grow once I went to college. And that's the next stage that we're going to talk about. Hopefully you're finding some overlap and seeing some things in yourself and making you think critically about your childhood, because a lot of what we grow up to be as adults stems from childhood.